thank you so much for making time to speak with me. I'm really excited about this because
Too.
usually 9 times out of 10 when I'm doing interviews, I know a lot about the subject, the people,
Right.
the show and everything. This is one of the first for me that I've never even actually heard of,
Oh,
but
wow.
this is something that has is international, it's worldwide, it's been everywhere. In fact, you're even returning to the place that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to learn more about this because you're coming back to the Fallsview Casino. And this is, like I said, an international show that if you're old school, like me, you're going to love this show. What is the show called first, and what is the show about? The synopsis behind it, please.
Okay, the easiest way to put it is this.
Mhm.
Picture a full orchestra, a full gospel choir, a full rock band, 6 lead singers, and every raging classic rock song under the canopy of Britain Rocks, which is really the subtitle of the show, that you've ever heard of. It is a show that not only encourages you to sing along, but it's a show that encourages you to get up and dance. And one of the best things about the show is this. There are 100 companies that are out there that will do classic rock shows, it's classic albums, they'll do this, that, and the other thing. What makes this show so spectacularly different is the majority of those shows are very slick in their presentations. We are the performers, we are here to educate you, we are here to edify you, we are here to pose and show how cool we are to make sure that you understand that we are the rock stars and you are the audience. What is different about our show, that's not the case. This is 6 lead singers, an orchestra, a rock band, a gospel choir. We are, in short, a family. We are a family that's been doing this now for 15 years. We are a family where every time we get together, the product itself gets better and better and better, under the direction of Rob Asselstein, who not only is our producer, musical director, but also the guy who conceived of this. These are real people having real fun. um, One of the best things about live performing is that the first and foremost is we give ourselves permission to have a good time, which takes all the onus off the audience. The audience therefore sees us having a good time, and they start to go, "Oh, wait, we can have a good time too," not in spite of them, not in lieu of them, but with them. It's a very cyclical thing. It is a real homecoming for us. The Fallsview Casino is where World Rock was born. So 15 years later to come back to our essentially our home turf and our home theaters is an incredible thing for us. We've had an incredible journey together as a family, as a product, as a music organization, as people who just genuinely like each other. It is a really incredible thing. I'll give you one more thing before we move on. Um, I've been working as a pro since I was a kid, and have worked Broadway stuff and national touring stuff and rock stuff, and have worked with heroes and legends and that kind of thing. And that's all great. I'm truly the luckiest man you will ever meet. Trust me. One of the greatest things about this is that with the particularly with the lead singers down front, and really with everybody involved, it is one of the most ego-free processes I've ever been involved with. And when you're dealing with performers, that's sort of a tall order. These are remarkable singers, remarkable performers, but remarkable people, each and every single one of them. And I learn every time I get on stage with them. I'm a better performer every time I get on stage with them. I truly am the luckiest guy you will ever meet.
Who came up with the idea 15 years ago to create something like this type of music experience?
In various ways, it's sort of existed before. Um, some of the world's biggest rock bands were going out and doing their catalogs with orchestra. Elton John certainly did it in Australia. Kiss did one in Australia as well, and they were done in London and things like that. There was an incarnation of something like this years ago prior to World Rock called the British Rock Symphony, which I starred in with Peter Frampton and Leslie West from Mountain, and God, who we had Phoebe Snow, and we had Zach Starkey, Ringo's son, on the drums, and there were various incarnations that of that show that had Roger Daltrey and the Wilson sisters from Heart. That was a very different show. that was a more star-driven, and I don't want to slight it because it was a remarkable experience for me, you know, and I got to work with some heroes and it was great. The difference between that particular product and the World Rock is that particular product was kind of soulless in that you had these celebrities, legit stars, all of them, legends, all of them, and coming out and doing their thing. And then you'd have some other singers come out and do their thing too. But it was never, at least in my opinion, it was never truly a cohesive one thing. It was never, it was Roger Daltrey and the British Rock Symphony. It was this star in the British Rock Symphony. It was these celebrities in the British Rock Symphony, but it was never just the British Rock Symphony. This is the British Rock Symphony. I am but one part of a very big mechanism, and every person that is part of that, from the string players to the timpani players to the lead saxophone player, who's one of the greatest sidemen on the planet. Um, it is a unit that works in totality of its parts, and no one part is more important than another part, if that makes any sense. You know, I'm sort of the rock tenor guy. That's what I do. I come out and I sing Led Zeppelin, I sing The Who, I sing a Phil Collins song, I get to make the old ladies cry, and it's great, and I love it. But I am but one part. You know, the other singers all have their strengths and their roles to fill too, but every time I get on stage, we are all sitting in the wings watching each other, cheering each other on. It's never about one-upmanship. It's never about, well, Danny's the rock singing guy, so therefore he is a more important part of that show than I am. No, that's not what this is. This is, I can't believe how great you just sang that song. Now, hopefully I can go do good too, so I don't screw it up for what you just did. This show is truly a blessing. I have, here's my one little 2-second take on this, and I've said it before about this show. You would have to hate this show a ton not to love this show a little bit. It is everything you want it to be and 100 times more, and it never insults you as an audience, ever.
You know, you mentioned many names of British artists, and I've
Yeah,
always said this, and see if you agree or disagree with this.
sure.
What is it about these British artists from back in the day that understood their interpretation of rock, of blues, of R&B, of soul, of reggae,
Yeah,
and do it so well, they're just as good as the originals, or I will say this, definitely better than the Americans, because I, of course, was born in 1964. So I kind of grew up with what was happening then. I really did experience the 70s. And of course, I was considered the second British invasion, the 80s.
yeah.
What is it about the British artists of back in the day that they can interpret these music genres so well and so pure, not insulting, but like I said, enjoyable?
I think it comes down to a really simple equation, is that their love of what American rock and roll music was. I mean, if you go back and you listen to the Beatles or the Who or anybody, it was all about Elvis. It was all about Elvis and Chuck Berry and all the stuff that was coming out of Chess Records with Moody Blues and Muddy Waters and all those guys, and Little Richard and you know, their fantastic love of American music, which at the time as they were coming up didn't exist in England. They were interpreting the American rock music sound, the American blues sound, the American, you know, early days of Motown sound, and their profound love for that music and their really homespun tribute to it is what added to the veracity of the catalogs of each and every one of those bands. I mean, if you look at the Beatles was really, in a lot of ways, with much of their songs, sort of a traditional British music hall band. But then you move over to the Rolling Stones, they're strictly a bar blues band. You then go over to Led Zeppelin, which is really a blues band, and you move forward throughout their catalogs. Now, yes, as they got older, they evolved and they incorporated different, more American styles of music in their catalogs, but it really is their basic love of really the only American made music except for jazz. That's it. It's a love, it's a profound love and a way to honor American music. And they did it so incredibly well. And in a lot of ways surpassed American stuff. You know, you sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, you know, the luxury of being over in England or anywhere over in Europe and having to wait so long to have American music brought over to you and then digesting it at such a ferocious rate, you learn how to interpret it, and they just really did an amazing thing. And the American British catalog for rock and roll, particularly in the '60s, is outrageous.
Yeah.
It is a virtually endless. I mean, you and I are roughly the same age. I'm a couple of years younger than you. Is that they set the standards as soon as the Beatles touched shore in '64 and went on America and went on Ed Sullivan. That changed everything.
Mhm.
Elvis changed everything. Little Richard changed everything. You know, the true fathers of rock and roll coming out of rhythm and blues. I do another show with a buddy of mine here in the States, and he starts his show by saying, "What is rock and roll?" And the quote that he uses to describe what rock and roll is, well, Little Richard says that rock and roll is just the blues sped up. And he's right.
Yeah.
But from that very, very basic seedling of that musical foundation, it blossomed into this tree, an ever-growing tree that's kept me alive for a long time.
So we have our generation who grew up with this music.
Yes.
And as the years go by, especially because of being boomers, our hearts start to break when we start to lose these
Yeah.
great performers. I mean,
Yeah.
um, Phil Collins hasn't passed away, but Phil Collins has retired from performing. Led Zeppelin, how many times do we see Led
Well,
Zeppelin ever?
we saw them once at Live Aid in the
Yeah,
'80s,
exactly.
and before that, it was the last shows that they did in Germany, which I think was in '81. You know,
And there you go.
shortly after Bonham died, and then there was the one show, the Celebration Day tour, or Celebration Day performances for an A&R Records or Atlantic Records. You know, look,
Exactly.
we are of a time, particularly as boomers, as you say, where the legends, the icons of our music are starting to go. Yeah, you bring up a really interesting thing about Phil Collins. You know, for a man who dominated an entire decade of music, not only with Genesis but his own catalog. You have Led Zeppelin, which has been the barometer, really, that every major hard rock band has been measured against since they came out in, God, what was it, 65, 66?
Yes. I was going to say 66, but I think you're right with 65.
You know, these are icons of our lifetime. And what's interesting is I was watching an interview actually not too long ago with Gene Simmons of Kiss and said, you know, rock and roll is dead.
I saw that.
And you know, from the perspective that he's talking about, he's not wrong. You know, he says, really, give me one, name me one modern American rock band, a real American rock band that is within the charts, that is in the power structure of the music, and they don't exist. I mean, you could say the Foo Fighters, but they're a 20-year-old band. That's
Yeah.
not a new rock band, and they're certainly not dominating the charts, regardless of how unbelievably great they are. Um, and it's sad, the production of American rock music. You could say Greta Van Fleet, I suppose, but they're really just, you know, Led Zeppelin babies.
What about
Kind
Bon
of.
Jovi, do you think?
Bon Jovi was a pop band that matched themselves as a hard rock band. I think
I like the way you said that.
I think that John Bon Jovi and the band was a machine. I think they were a very good machine. But I think they were a pop band that disguised themselves as a hard rock band. I can't take anything away from John and the guys. Um, I think that they dominated a culture, a subculture of rock and roll, particularly at the time that was being dominated by a lot of posers and a lot of let's make our hair long, let's make sure we are wearing the appropriate spandex so that the A&R guys and the marketing guys can get us on the cover of Cream and Circus magazines, that were putting out pop focused rock music, and there's nothing
That
wrong.
that didn't, and if I can add in, that didn't wasn't experimental.
No,
And no, not even close. But one thing I want to jump in and add in, though, everything you said, I absolutely agree with. So knowing that all this information, when you guys are going on stage, and for us as an audience members who are
yeah,
going, we've lost all these people. Now we have to turn, not have to, but we turn to you and the show to bring us back. How much pressure is that, knowing that we want to hear that sound that we know we won't be able to hear from the originals?
that's a great question. That's a great question. We are not a tribute act.
Mhm.
I'm not going out there and no, even though vocally there is at times a similarity between my voice and Phil Collins' voice, or there are times where my voice is similar to Robert Plant's or Roger Daltrey's. We are not a tribute act. I'm not going out there and doing Robert Plant bits or Phil Collins bits or Roger Daltrey bits or Argent bits or any of that stuff. This is a celebration of the music. This is one of the great ways to look at it is this. If you're looking at just the lead vocalist downstage, we're six best friends that you haven't met yet. And we're in your living room and we're all having some beers and we're all singing these songs together.
Nice.
And you know, we're just the guys that are leading the charge. Again, it is about, it's not about us. It's not. It, you know, it'd be great sometimes as a performer and as, you know, a man who works in a business that really is based on ego a lot of the time, that if it was about me, it would be great if it was about me. I would love that, but it's not. You know, it's about us together. And so me going out there and singing Kashmir with my friend Jessica, it is a tag team event about singing this incredible song, this incredibly difficult song, and making sure that you are part of the song as well. Because look, one of the things that's, like I said, I've been doing this since I was a kid, and I learned really young, is that the moment you think you are more important than the material that you're doing is the day you should stop. I am a, and this is going to sound so corny, so forgive me. I am a vessel for this music. It is not about me. It is about this music, and it's about me being able to give this music to everybody and share it as much as I possibly can so that we do this together. Because anything you do together with somebody else is 100 times better than doing it alone.
I'm curious, have you heard back from any of the originals about the show and their thoughts and your interpretation of the songs and the music?
Uh, I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was doing a show, and I was working with Leslie West and Peter Frampton, and I was singing some of the same material that I do in this show.
Mhm.
Uh, Peter Frampton paid me a very, very nice compliment when I was doing Stairway to Heaven and said, "Don't ever let Robert Plant hear you sing this because he'll get mad at you because you sing it better than he does." You know, look, you, it is, it is a remarkable thing what we get to do. Um,
Wow.
and the fact that people seem to like what I do too is really great because that means I get to do it some more.
Man,
Um,
I got to jump in because imagine, when you were growing up, as we all did, singing in the shower
yeah,
or, with your buddies singing in the gym,
yeah,
doing the a cappella stuff.
yeah.
It's got to be a thrill for you to remember those days, to now go to the big stage and to be able to sing those songs that you sang when you were
Oh, it's
young.
great. It's great. It's really great. Look, I mean, I cut my sort of name comes because I starred in a show called Jesus Christ Superstar for about 30 years. Um, and playing Jesus and Judas. And, you know, so I've got a pretty high range and, you know, I'm a rock singer. I'm also a jazz singer and I'm also a Broadway musical theater cat, but I cut my teeth doing Jesus Christ Superstar. You know, I toured for 5 years with the guys who starred in the film, and I have done more production of it than anybody in history. So I come from a good pedigree regarding this material, and the fact that you and I are of a certain age gives us a well to draw from for this material. I'll give you a great example. I was doing a show, and they had some people that were younger than me in the show, and they were singing some of this classic material. And they went out there and they performed the material very admirably. They had no idea what they were doing, but they performed the material very, very admirably. They went out there and they strutted around the stage like a rock star. They posed like a rock star. They did what they thought the audience would want to see, but had no connection to the music at all. And as great as those performances were, they rang a little hollow because they missed that one ingredient, which is to have that music in their soul. Now, over time, this was a few years ago, God, 5, 6 years ago. Over time, when they had the chance to live in the music and not just perform the music, but really sit down and I'll give you a great example. There is a difference between sitting down and listening to Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here one afternoon than sitting down and listening to Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here for a year. There's a difference. The understanding of how that particular album will get into your soul, or Dark Side of the Moon, or The Wall, or Zeppelin 2, or Zeppelin 3, or there is something that gets into your DNA about it. And once those seeds of that music's DNA gets in you, it's there forever, which is half the reason why our show exists in the first place.
As we wrap this up, what do you hope that old school gets from this show and new school, who is probably just discovering these songs? What do you
Right.
hope that both will get from this show?
I'm going to do a shameless plug because I
Please.
think that uh, the other singers and performers in this show deserve a shout out. So again, I told you we are 6 singers, and we're sort of archetypes within the show. So we have a gentleman named Kingsley Leggs. The other thing I want to say is this is our 15th year doing this.
Yes.
15 years later, we have about 60 people on the stage doing this show. 15 years later, everybody is back. Everybody. In our business, that's unheard of. Goes back to the whole family thing. We have a singer named Kingsley Leggs, who's sort of the R&B guy. We have a guy named Michael Lanning, who is sort of our godfather of it all. He's the old sort of Richie Haven sounding singer who has the gravitas. We have Jessica Robinson, who's sort of the rock chick. We have Sharon Riley, who is not only one of the greatest performers I've ever seen, but it is her gospel choir that
Whoa,
is.
whoa, 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 whoa. Did you say Sharon Riley?
Oh, yes.
How the hell did you get Sharon Riley on this show?
That just lends you a glimmer into what the quality of the show that you're seeing. And it is her gospel choir that is our gospel choir.
Oh man, you just elevated.
Oh, yeah. We have Mikkel, who is a girl out of Nashville, who's one of the most beautiful and fine singers I've ever seen. We have Kenny Post on the drums. We have Rich Levesque on the bass. We have Mark Anatakis, who's out playing with Lighthouse right now on the guitar. We have Rich Levesque, who is, Tristan Avakian, who's out playing with Mark Martel, who is the guy who was the voice of Freddie Mercury in the We Will Rock You movie. Tristan's one of the, this is a list of heavy hitters that is ridiculous. If you were trying to put this anywhere else, you couldn't afford to put this show on a stage. So what do I hope these audience come away from, the existing old school audiences and the new audiences? What I want them to walk away with is this. You are seeing 60 people who genuinely like each other, who genuinely love each other, that are brought together by Rob Asselstein, who put this show together. Rob's first thing he said when we first did our very first performance 15 years ago is that it's amazing what you can do when good people come together who care. That's number one. So I want them to know that we're going to be enjoying the show as much as they are. We want them to know that it is a show not just for them, but for their friends and for their family. For the people that are new to this material, I want them to know this. Every generation has their music. Every generation has their style. My parents did, your parents did. The kids that come after us, they have theirs too. What I want them to know is ours is the best.
Boom! Love it. Oh my goodness. Brother, thank you so much for this interview. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
15 years of continuous education and good times.
Thank you, brother. I
We
really appreciate
definitely
it.
need this. Have a great time at Fallsview Casino. And man, keep doing what you're doing. I love
Thank
it.
you, man.
Thanks
I
again for
really
the
appreciate
interview.
it a lot.